Congressman Tom Garrett with us, Republican 5th District. I'm with Congressman Garrett, my co-host here for the day, Andrew Vehorn from Andrew's Army of the Electric Company. And we just got a chance to talk off air to Trey Gowdy for a few moments. And we told him that you were coming on the show, and he's like, I love that guy. I love that guy. So you got fans, congressmen all over the place.
Hey, Gowdy, to say that. So, now the truth is out. How are you, John?
Never better that with Tom Garrett. He's in Washington. I just got the heck out of town. He's still there. We're here in Richmond today. Congressman, I got to get to Susan Rice. I go on CNN. I can't talk about her. They're banning that. So if I bring it up, they change the subject and slap my hand. What do you think the deal is here?
Well, you just stop going on CNN. No, I'm kidding. Look, we know what happened. We need to be able to demonstrate what happened. All too often when people are brought to testify before House or Senate committees at the advice of their counsel, they invoke their Fifth Amendment right. It drives me nuts. The game of using the intelligence apparatus of the United States to influence political outcomes is so frightening and Soviet, so draconian and un-American that if we don't get it right now, I fear we will not recover the republic. I can't overstate just how incredibly scary it is to think that the full force and weight of the United States intelligence gathering apparatus might be co-opted by people with political ends to influence outcomes and to bring down an administration. And that, my friends, is the layer of the onion that we're at right now, and we need to get it back a few more layers, and somebody's probably to go to prison. I want you to just, if you're listening to this show, contemplate for a moment that you're a private U.S. citizen with constitutional rights to privacy, a right not to be surveilled by the state, but that those rules are thrown out the window should you choose to engage in political activity that's not consistent with the dogmatic rhetoric of the left, and that all bets are off and you could go to prison. We saw this candidly with the witch hunt for Bob McDonnell, where every single Supreme Court justice said he was not guilty. That's Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Sonia Sotomayor, etc. And this is how bad it's gotten. It's a scary world.
So here's the deal. Walk our audience, Congressman Garrett, through what Susan Rice allegedly did that is questionable. Like, let's not say right now it was a crime or anything else because all the facts aren't out. But she was the National Security Advisor, and she had the right, she had access, and she had the right to say, all right, I'm seeing under the general surveillance, I want to know the names of these private citizens.
First of all, I won't presume that it was general surveillance. There's one of two things that happened. Either they were surveilling foreign individuals who had contact incidental with Americans, or someone targeted Americans, and I don't think we know the answer to that. Then, when the Americans show up in the intercepts, there is a doctrine that you default to masking the names of the Americans consistent with their rights as Americans. Only where there's a need for context and understanding in the intel intercept are you to unmask. It would appear that the unmasking wasn't the exception but the rule, which begs the question why. I think the answer is politics. So they were all unmasked, and then your third felony offense, that we're on 3, would be the leaking of those names contrary to the classification level of the comms intercept to the news media. I mean, that's 3 felonies, and I guarantee you that there was at least 2 individuals involved at each layer. The requester and the actor, the requester and the actor at the second layer, and the requester and the leaker at the third layer. So we're at 4, and I'm being generous.
All right, so let's just go over these again so that our audience driving to work right now, Congressman Tom Garrett, Republican 5th District, Virginia, understands this. So felony number 1 is what? Just
felony number 1 is if the target of the surveillance was American nationals. If they were not, then you get to felony number 2. If they were, you're still at felony number 2. So felony number 2 is either felony number 2 or felony number 1. If it was incidental, then the unmasking, where routine, would be contrary to policy, right? And the leaking would be the third felony, or the second, depending upon whether or not we learn that the collection was incidental rather than targeted. But I just think it's too coincidental for it to have been incidental. And look, the ironic thing is, if you want to follow the money, which is usually how these things work, it all runs back to Democrats, right? Podesta's brother is a lobbyist who's made hundreds of thousands of dollars representing a Russian bank who was seeking to have sanctions lifted. Bill Clinton received $500,000 for one speech from Russia right about the time that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was approving Russian access and control over American uranium, of all things. If there were any smoking guns this red hot on our side of the aisle, Trump would be on his way out already.
This is kind of unbelievable the way you laid this out, Congressman. I'm not sure anybody has been as succinct and salient and cogent with this. So, I mean, if I'm in Trump Tower...
And that, my friend, is why Trey Gowdy likes me.
He does like you. He said you were cogent. I stole that word from him. I steal a lot of stuff on the air, believe me. And I'm not shy about it, Congressman Tom Garrett. Let's get to Eric Prince. What's the deal here? I mean, this guy, look, Blackwater, I go by it every day, take my son to baseball practice in Moyock. It's now called the Academy. He's getting on a plane. He's setting meetings up with the UAE and the Saudis, going to the Seychelles Islands and clandestine with a Russian official representing himself as somebody that has ties to the Trump campaign. I was with the campaign from before it started. Other than the guy giving $250,000, he had no input or did anything. What's the deal here? I mean, how did they find out? Was that part of the?
I don't know what you're talking about. Is this some late breaking news? I'm serious as a heart attack.
No, this is this guy. This is guy
Prince,
Eric,
or at least I know who
Eric
he is.
Prince. Yes,
and was friends with his former business partner Al Clark, who tragically passed. But I do not know the allegation to which you make reference.
Okay, that's fine. We'll skip over that.
Has this ever happened before, John? I'm usually spun up.
No, Eric Prince, the brother of Betsy DeVos, the education secretary, apparently set this clandestine meeting up, claiming that he was a representative of the Trump transition team 10 days before he was inaugurated, which doesn't make any sense because you wait to 10 days and then you can do whatever you want because now you're on missions. But his name obviously came up in conversation, so would he have been one of the people that was unmasked in this thing?
Oh, you're suggesting that Prince might have been a leaker?
No,
is that
he was
right?
leaked.
Yeah, I haven't honestly. I mean, I haven't heard anything until this phone conversation with you involving Eric Prince. So I'm probably not the best source on this one.
Okay, no worries. The vice president said that he met with the Freedom Caucus and we're trying to get son of Ryan Care or some other crony Care on steroids bill or whatever it is. What's this story with that? Any progress being made?
The vice president spoke with the Freedom Caucus 2 nights ago. We met most of us again last night. There are a lot of proposals that are designed, I think, by the administration to placate both the conservatives and the moderates. And what they do essentially is push control down over opt-out over things like community rating, essential health benefits to the states. I don't mind it. It's going to be pretty easy to predict which way the states break based on their political makeup and whether or not they took Medicaid expansion dollars. Having said that, and I will not let this be a showstopper, we haven't seen anything in writing, so it's all sort of hypothetical. But last I heard, the arbiter at the state level would be the governor, and I have a real problem with that. The arbiter should be the legislature of the state to be approved by the governor. But it's a pretty clever sort of offer by the administration to allow essentially the level of Obamacare that you accept or reject to be determined at the state level.
So basically it's going nowhere.
I'm not going to say that, but I would like to see him change the arbiter, the determiner of participation from the governor to the legislature like any other item of such import would be in any state. And we want to make sure that we have all the elements of Title I, the control panel, if you will, that we can in the control of the people elected by the citizens. It really is an outside-the-box way to come back at this because either side, I think, the Freedom Caucus or the Tuesday Group, can claim to have gotten what they wanted so long as it's in the control of the states. So, I'm impressed. I don't think it's going anywhere this week because, as I said, we haven't gotten anything in writing. And right. I'm not going to agree to vote for a hypothetical. But, I mean, truly, it's better than where we were.
All right. So, look, you made some progress, obviously. Congressman Garrett, tragedy in Syria yesterday. No question, there's chemical warfare going on. I'm not convinced to say on the air 100% it was by the Assad regime. Appears to be. We don't know that for a fact. Either way, we got a tragic situation there. You look at the children gasping for air on TV. You can't even watch it. I mean, it's a horrific situation. Trump administration here in a bind because he campaigned on getting out of there, not getting involved, certainly not sending any troops. Now we've got another humanitarian crisis, people looking to the United States to lead.
Yeah, so
Europe is AWOL on it.
Don't start dropping bombs on people until you know who the people to drop the bombs on are, right?
Thank you. Yes.
I got to be careful what I say here because obviously I'm probably privy to some information that I can't share, but the media immediately lurched to a conclusion that it was Assad. I would submit that there are any number of reasons to believe that it could have been Jabhat al-Nusra or ISIS. There are precedents for release of chemical weapons by non-state actors in the region and not too long ago. So there are no good guys, but we know who the bad guys are. I think what the Trump administration needs to do, and candidly, I got to give them a hat tip because they've been doing it extraordinarily well, and you haven't seen it on your evening news, is we need to keep on stumping the heck out of ISIS. And I think, candidly, based on conversations that I've had and stuff I've seen that I'm able to comment on, that ISIS is going to be as a commander of terrain, as a geographically defined entity. I think they're going to be done within 6 months to a year. Now, you'll still see people who affiliate themselves with ISIS carrying out terror attacks and that sort of thing, but as a pseudo nation state, you've read the stories about them printing their own currency and that sort of thing. They're just about done. And the progress has been very rapid and very decisive.
So they're not long for this world as far as a geographical entity. You know, they'll still be doing terrorist attacks and they'll still have affiliations. So getting back to the Syria situation, then you would agree with me that without sharing anything that you've learned on the intel level, there's not conclusive evidence that the chemical weapons dropped in Syria against innocent people have come from the Assad regime. That is not
That's right. In fact, I'm quite confident that we don't have conclusive evidence as to who the bad actors were. But I would submit that if you're ISIS and you're getting throttled, and again, I will tell you, the Trump administration, the progress we're making is unprecedented against this particular enemy. But if you're getting throttled, it might make sense to throw the Hail Mary to try to create pressure on your enemy to take it off of yourself. Now, I'm not suggesting that's what happened. I'm suggesting that's a real problem or possibility based on the information that I have that I'm able to speak about publicly.
Bottom line is, right now, we can't be certain who launched these attacks, whether it was ISIS, a third-party group, the Assad regime, we don't know. But to your point, Congressman, the media has all jumped to the conclusion. This is the problem in the mainstream media now. They have a narrative. Whatever the narrative is, they go with it. And
it's the cocktail party narrative, too.
Facts.
It's what they believe based on their worldview. And then they all come to a consensus, and then they tell the American news-consuming public, this is what happened. And I'm telling you that there are instances where it's completely at odds with what the intelligence community is, I think, leaning towards. In those instances, the intelligence community doesn't have the power of the airwaves, nor does it have the impetus to tell people what it might know or believe, because we would compromise our tactics, techniques, and procedures if we did so. So It's very interesting, the paradigm. That is, the media gets to say, here's what happened, and other people might know better, but there's no avenue for them, nor is there a motive as it relates to being able to continue to gather information to counter that. But it leads to bad decisions politically.
Congressman Tom Garrett, what a time. I want to thank you for your candor as always, and want to appreciate your being with us. Congressman Tom Garrett, Republicans, 5th District, Virginia. That's the Lynchburg area. And people want more info, Tom. Where do they go?
TomGarrettForCongress.com. Go to Facebook, Congressman Tom Garrett. Let me see. Garrett for VA on Twitter. There's all kinds of stuff. Google will link us up.
You're just a social media guru. All right, Congressman, thanks for being with us. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network.